Hello everybody, this is Angel Arts, and welcome to the finale episode of Let's Talk The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 5. And once again, I am here with my esteemed guests. Joining us is Lucky Jack 20 once again.
Hello.
And if we're lucky, we might also get to see later on Self-Seeder Carson, who, as I said, according to my Discord server, is currently playing The Walking Dead as we speak right now. So we might have a super fresh perspective from him if he decides to drop in. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's not waste any time. We can basically take it from the very beginning. As usual, there is another flashback.
Yes.
This time it is with your brother David and your father, your papa, and you're playing dominoes, and you have a bit of an exchange between them. You realize that the father was hiding the fact that he was sick, that he had cancer from his family, and David freaks out, and you can decide how you, as Javier, takes the news. Thoughts on that opening sequence?
Who talks? Okay, I guess I'll talk first.
Go ahead, Lucky Jack.
I'm assuming, first of all, that, okay, probably a minor thing. I'm assuming, depending on which domino piece you pick, you have absolutely no way of knowing it at first, but I'm assuming which domino piece you pick determines whether or not your father would win the game, or if David would have won the game.
That's what I'm guessing. Who won for you?
David won the game in mine, because I picked the. Okay. I think I picked the domino that had the. It had the number 1 on the opposite side of the 5, and I think if you picked I don't know.
I picked 1, and I also had David winning. Did anybody have their dad winning?
Oh, I did 2 playthroughs, and David won both times.
Oh, okay, then it must be
that's
scripted.
Cheap.
I guess it would have to be scripted, because otherwise you'd have no reason to go to the wallet, and thus. Fine, that is true. Okay,
true.
Sorry,
that is true.
I guess it didn't come as much of a surprise. Like, it was kind of a muffled surprise, like that. It was the kind of surprise you're like, oh wait a minute, he died in the first episode. That does. I guess this kind of adds up. And I recently had a relative succumb to that a couple years ago, so I could understand the emotions coming from both brothers. One that was on Javier's side, wanting to accept the fact that his father's wanting to still wants to keep his life in his own hands and make his decisions, whereas David is becoming very hot-headed, as is his wont, about that he wants his father to take any and every opportunity to extend his life.
This Saturday, I too am actually going to a memorial of a friend of mine who also died from cancer as well. So, yeah, it's very real. It can definitely hit close to home for a lot of people. Did you have some? I thought I saw you raise your hand, Andrew. Did you have any thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I raised my hand to make a number 2 because I had the 2 on the. But I thought this beginning, for me, was the question to ask, and to ask anyone in a post-apocalyptic situation. And I thought their dad was awesome, and I had cancer when I was younger. And the approach to it, a 16-year-old kid versus a man, varies wildly. But I put in my notes that the point in that, I think this is directly or not, I'm assuming they put him in here for this reason, that the goal of life is not to stay alive as long as possible, but it is not about staying alive, but it's about how you live. And he brings up the idea of legacy, that you're leaving a legacy behind. He decided chemo wasn't worth it. Like, I'm not going to do that. It's not just about being physically alive as long as possible. It's the quality of life. It's what his dad, their dad wanted, to just live the life and not. Yes, chemo sucks. It's terrible, and you may die from it anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought that philosophy and how you answer that question, what is living for, and what is surviving a post-apocalyptic thing for? It's not just, to me, about do whatever it takes to live as long as possible, but you have to have some kind of standard, some kind of something, a standard where you have to say, this is where I draw my line, and I'm not going to do whatever it takes to live. It's not just about living, it's how I live. And I thought that, to me, was, I'm so glad that they included it, because it's been on my mind for a while. And then his dad is right there front and center. I think can really play into making, I hope, making people question a little late at the end, but at least because you're making some critical choices, what is worth it? And is it just about survival, or are you going to, do you have a standard that you're going to stick to, even if it means you die?
I'm so glad you pointed that out, Andrew, because a lot of people who play these games, will say, well, yeah, you have to do some terrible things that you normally wouldn't do otherwise, but hey, at least you get to survive. And I'm glad that you brought that up, with the whole point of, it's not just about surviving, it's not just about living as long as possible, which is a concept that I think is not shared predominantly by anyone in The Walking Dead. Most probably because they've survived as long as they have so far. Going back to the friend that I was talking about, whose memorial I'm going to on Saturday, he also chose for himself that he was not going to go through treatment anymore. He decided that he did not want to be a burden. It was something that he had been fighting for about 5 or 6 years ongoing. And he decided for himself that he, this is the line, and he was going to have one more gathering with family and friends so that he could officially say goodbye. And that's a tough thing to read from Facebook. It was on a Facebook post message. Because that was like his predominant form of communication before he passed. So I remember reading that myself and feeling torn whether I should respect his, choice to stop fighting to live, or if I should try to talk him out of it. But in the end, I, of course, let him decide for himself what he wanted to do with his life and for how long he wanted to do it for.
Something that and it did catch me by surprise and made me double check and rethink some of my decisions, was when you're given the choice, the ultimate choice of, in that scene, of whether to back up your brother on whether or not you should both be egging your father to fight to survive, or if he should just, make his own decisions. I chose to respect my father's wishes and disagree with David, and it took me by surprise that Javier's father actually reprimanded him a little bit for that, saying you should have said that, because it then made me realize, he is, unfortunately, your father, an awesome man as he was, his days are numbered, whereas David is the one who's going to survive. So he did bring up a point that I'm going to have to remember in future episodes and future things, is that the choices I make, there are moments where I need to understand who else is actually going to survive with me, and what relationship I will have with them as a result of trying to do this for someone whose days are numbered, who will be gone. I don't want to risk damaging those current relationships as a result of something. I understand the purpose, the little, the rhythm of these flashbacks, but I really wish they would have given me these at the very beginning, because I really think, had I seen all the stuff in the past that led up to the apocalypse, it would have really affected the decisions I make throughout the whole season, if we're actually thinking chronologically here. I guess, had I known about that whole discussion with his father, I would have probably behaved around David a little differently than had I somehow, with Javier, had amnesia that conversation even took place until episode 5.
If you knew about the promise, for example,
right,
that you either did or did not make with your dad, then that might have affected how you would have. I understand that. Mark or Jacob, either of you?
Well, depending on the information we have from the first episode saying how David's like, oh, Javi, you're never around. This is probably the last time Javi ever saw his father before he passed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably even more tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mark?
I mean, we pretty much discussed everything except whether you promised to be a good brother to your father, and I promised to be a good brother, even though despite some of my decisions that we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm. I like the scene especially because we didn't really get a chance to get to know our papa until this point, because the first scene of the first session, or the first episode rather, was him dying and turning into a walker. So it was kind of nice to take a look back and see what the man was like before all of this was happening. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Well, let's move on to present time. So, complete shift. A lot of stuff was hitting the fan. However, things went on between, with the town meeting and
chaos.
Guns firing left and right, chaos, Kate crashing the truck into the wall. There's that part where Kate, depending on how you treated your relationship, either was very, very forward with her advances to Javier in front of David, or awkward with Javier in front of David, but enough to give David some sort of a question mark as what does that mean, what's going on there. Mm-hmm. All of that's going on, and then we eventually meet back at the apartment where I think you see Eleanor, and there's the whole scene with at least for me, it was the scene with this woman who is trying to help save this other gentleman who I think was bitten. I think he was bitten.
He was also the driver from episode 1.
Yes.
Yeah, Rufus.
If he was alive
Rufus
still.
Rufus and Fern, that was them.
If he was still alive, if you spared him. I don't know what happens if he was killed.
She's
I have
just
no idea.
by herself.
It could be because either way they mentioned that their daughter was in the big attack that happened.
Gotcha. Any thoughts up to that point? That's a good chunk of.
Somehow Eleanor thinks Tripp's death is our fault.
Yeah.
If Tripp died, spoilers for me.
If Tripp died, Ava died for me.
Ava died for me. I hate her.
Eleanor or Ava?
I dislike Eleanor.
Okay.
Because she is just such a self-serving. She's self-serving, but she justifies what she's doing. She does have a good point that they need a doctor. That's fair, but there are, I think, clearly ulterior motives behind that. Okay, she's good with these people. She has it in with them. And clearly doesn't seem phased that somewhere along the line she was okay with Tripp being on that stage and no one, I guess, clued her into it or something. But I don't know.
Eleanor seems to. Go ahead.
Reasonings for betraying us if you kept Conrad alive are, I told you I didn't want to leave this place.
Really? That's she really just went and she really just was a more extreme Kate. That's her argument.
Apparently.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think that's what I got too.
God,
Eleanor seems to suffer from, let's blame everything on the main protagonist no matter what happens. Let's blame Javier.
Yeah.
But luckily you can throw it right back in her face, which is what I did.
Same. I was like, oh yeah, I got mad at her. I was like, no.
How did you throw it back on her? I don't remember what the options were.
It was you can either forgive her, forgive her, or say it. She's got to earn her trust back.
And there's there's a choice. You can literally just say how dare you, or you're one to talk about, trust and how everything's our fault. And
Mm-hmm.
Well, from what I remember, because Trip died for me, she blamed me for Trip's death. And I said, no, you got Trip killed because you went and told Joan our plan.
That's true.
And
that's true.
And then, she got even more irritated. And then it's like, yeah, how dare you blame me? It's like, if you didn't, go blabbing to Joan, it's like Trip would have been fine. But ultimately, I did forgive her. That's, I think, the one difference.
Okay. I said she had to earn it. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I thought she was it didn't feel like she had been in Richmond like long enough to really fall in love with it. Wasn't she just there like a few days, a few hours even? Longer than
days.
Like,
yeah.
Not really a nice weekend
couple
getaway.
days. Yeah.
Yeah. I did forgive her, and it was tied in. I don't know that I would have as much without that initial kind of legacy, kind of quality of living kind of thing. So yeah, that was, I thought there was just throughout this whole thing, but I think beginning there, some kind of, everything felt a little rushed, and the dialogue felt a little lame in points, like escalates too much, or like, why would you say that? Doesn't make any sense. Or I felt that a little more this episode.
We got to connect all these stories together, all these different choices into one continuous finale somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, David does what David does, and then he storms off. And then you meet him up in the roof. He asks you to come up to the edge of the roof with him. I admit that was, I don't know, I felt relatively safe because I figured this is still just the beginning of this episode, so if he pushes me off the roof for some reason, I mean, that would be a little disheartening. But you have a conversation with him, and he basically realizes he has a problem. He admits he has a problem, and then he asks if he can be redeemed, if he can redeem himself. During my Let's Play, I actually paused and talked a bit about the fact that he's a soldier and the fact that a lot of veterans in real life end up being very psychologically messed up, understandably so, when they come back. And I think David, it's not his fault in the sense that, he's not completely there. And he should be getting help. We just don't have the, certified professionals who could provide him with said help. So it's a horrible situation where you can't help him really. And that means he still is a liability. But so what do you do? What do you do at that point? He's your brother, and it's not completely his fault, but he's, like, for me, he keeps talking about how he's trying to protect his son, and then the next thing he does is he smacks him across the face and he falls back onto the floor. So
it's I think, quick callback, I think your father had him down to a T, and when he was like kind of mocking you both in his fatherly shrugging way, where he calls him a hot-headed idiot with his heart in the right place. He's trying, but he's just so intense about things. Passionate, I guess, is the word. I don't know. That's the most positive way I could put it.
When you say that, one of my viewers mentioned during the live stream that David is season 3's Kenny. Do you agree or disagree with that? And that's for anyone who wants to answer that question, if they think David is season 3 Kenny.
I mean, now that I think about it, I can agree. I definitely see the parallels. I personally, for a while, thought Trip was going to be the new Kenny. Like, I don't even know. Like, for some reason, I felt so. If Trip survives and you meet him, basically, I assume basically take everything that you saw with Ava and flip them around with Trip, and that's basically the experience. But when I met Trip, when I met up with him again, he mentioned something like, "I feel so weird. I feel like I'm feel like I'm in a pair of shoes that don't fit me. And in the commentary, I was like, yeah, you mean you're trying to replace Kenny? I know, it's weird. Doesn't quite work, but
You think Trip is replacing Kenny?
It's just the beard, wasn't it?
It was the beard, it was the southern accent, it was the connection that he had trying to struggle with Eleanor and how quick he was to jump between emotions. Hello.
Hi, Carson. Did you just? I think you just finished.
I just finished it now. God.
I know you did.
I was trying to say, I'm trying to hurry this up. I'm trying to
Okay,
make
Carson.
this fast.
We'll get to you in a minute. Well, Carson, we already started talking about. We're going chronologically, so we're not. You haven't missed too much. We finished. We finished the talking about the flashback.
With Pon and David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm fine.
I'll give you a chance to talk about some of the previous scenes in just a moment. I just want to finish our train of thought here because we're talking about the conversation with David on the roof when he's asking you to stand next to him on the roof.
Okay.
And one of the biggest questions I just asked is one of the viewers mentioned that they thought that David is season 3's Kenny. I was wondering if the panel agrees or disagrees with that assessment. Anyone else other than Lucky Jack want to talk about that?
I'm pretty sure I talked about this last podcast, or I drew parallels because they tried to do a thing with Kenny where depending on how you play, your relationships can be neutral, best friends, or you just hate each other. And they seem to be doing that with David this season. And then there was also the similar situations of David starting out being a nice guy, but then everyone's afraid of him now, just like everyone in the finale of season 2. So that's just where I picked on.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew or Mark?
I would say yes, I agree, but I think I'll go into more detail later for a later scene.
Okay. No?
I must have a terrible memory. So, like I played it a year ago or a year and a half. I don't remember. So
yeah.
No opinion.
No opinion. Carson, do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, and just to be clear, I apologize if I'm eating right now. It's been a while I ate.
That chicken looks so good.
That's okay. Go for it.
I'm on a diet right now, and Carson's killing me. Waving that fried chicken. I haven't had a fried chicken in months. Thank you, Carson.
Hey, if it makes you feel better, I'm eating white rice too. Okay, I'm eating white rice.
It's not brown rice.
So
that's okay.
let me try to make short detail. Pond and David scene. I actually sided with David at first. Then I said I'll keep my promise and everything. So I just felt all that get on the show. But with the roof scene. When I did it, I was like, look, I want to play this gray area where I side with them, but I'm a little scared. He did kind of feel like Kenny, but I think it was of more an extreme Kenny, if you get what I'm saying. You know what I mean, Pop-Tart, or no?
I'd prefer if you call me Jacob, but yes.
Okay, Jacob.
Sorry.
Okay, Jacob, well, if you get what I'm saying, it feels like he was an extreme version of Kenny, because my Kenny was... a little much nicer, or just he at least had boundaries and morals. But for David, when I chose to stand with him on the roof, I just felt like I felt like, he's my brother. He's not gonna push me. I understand this because I have an older brother and I am the little brother. So me and Javi have a lot to relate to. So I know he wasn't gonna do anything bad, or at least I prayed he didn't.
Right.
So for the most part, you were still siding with David, or you at least thought he could be redeemed.
Yeah, I thought he mentioned this in my in my walkthrough. He mentioned he was looking for atonement or redemption. So I was like, yeah, he could be redeemed, because he mentioned, do you think people can be changed? I said, yeah, you can change. You just have to do it on your own terms. If that makes sense.
I definitely see a lot of similarities with Kenny and David, because one of the things that I think the viewers know about my strong opinions on Kenny, but I give credit where credit is due, and I think I understand how Kenny's character works. Yes, he can be very hot-headed, but beyond that, why does he sometimes get hot-headedness? It's because Kenny, in order for him to survive, he needs something to protect, whether it's his family, whether it's Sarita. When Sarita found him and he had nothing to protect when she found him, he was, according to Sarita, he was like messed up. And now that she found him and he ended up establishing a relationship with him, he found something that he could protect now. When Sarita was gone, he started attaching to AJ and was arguably a little bit too attached to AJ. And that's the thing. I think that with Kenny, he needs something to protect. Otherwise, he doesn't feel like he has purpose, and he doesn't feel like there's any reason for him to live. David, I think, is the same way. He was in the armed forces, so I'd like to believe a part of him was trying to protect something, either his country or the ideals of the country or whatever it was he was trying to protect. Now that he's back and he's no longer fighting a war, he keeps saying, you know, this is all I know, like fighting in the war. You know, he's desperately now trying to protect AJ, he's trying to protect Kate, he's trying to protect Gabe. But there's a little bit of a disconnect because a lot of the things that he tries to do to protect them ends up actually hurting them in the long run. Go ahead, Logan.
I was going to add to that I would almost say maybe even more so than protection. I feel like whether David would admit it or not, I feel like something that he was also striving for, something that he was valuing, was the idea of control. Like he liked the idea of things being under control, and he felt things were most in control when he was the one, like, okay, in both figurative and literal situations, when he was the one with the gun and things were falling to place where he could, you know, have something like I know I hear him when he's talking to all of his teammates and his orderlings, like he always tosses in "that's an order" after every single one, because he wants that sort of, I feel like he wants that control, because to him that, I think he also says that in the rooftop discussion, that makes sense to him, having this sort of chain of command and sort of he understands and respects that trust and loyalty above everything else, which is why when I lost Ava, he took that really badly.
Carson, before we continue on, was there anything that you wanted to share I don't know if you had any thoughts about any of the scenes leading up to this, maybe the flashback or even the opening sequence in the present?
Let's see, I already mentioned the flashback. I guess you could say I was a little mad that I lost to him and that my dad was going to pay the $10 for me, but I was very shocked that he had cancer and he was keeping it a secret. But knowing my family, that's kind of the same way with my grandparents. They're like, hey, listen, if I told your mom, if I told your grandma, you'd be like, I'd be going through a shitstorm right now and it's going to be terrible and I don't want to go through that at all. But I understood that, in a sense, I felt like, hey, in a sense, I agree with how David is feeling. If it was my dad, hey, you would fight on. You wouldn't tell your dad, hey, it's your life. Go ahead and do what you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. It'd be really wrong. But moving into the present day, I don't know if half the group did or didn't, but with Eleanor backstabbed me and chose to sell me and my group out, even though I had a secret crush and love for her. Yes. If those who watched my first and second, you would know I loved Eleanor. I just wanted to get with her, but she backstabbed me. I was mad. I felt betrayed, but I forgave her because she's trying to do some kind of good and redeem herself with other people. But how David reacted, like with breaking, I don't know, I'll call her
Fern.
What was her name?
Fern.
Breaking Fern's arm. I was like, well, that's a little extreme. Like I feel like you're like.
We don't say extreme. We say he's passionate. That makes it okay.
Yeah, he's very, very passionate. Hey there. Wait, I think you're going for the.
Swipe the gun away, but just hit her arm too hard.
Oh wait.
That could also be that.
Wait, you're going for the gun. Boom. Oh man, I'm trying to protect my son Gabe. I gotta do whatever I can.
Oh, no, and then it was really disturbing, actually, because he actually mentioned that. Another thing, it was very disturbing and made me very uncomfortable around him, because they said, like, no, I said, like, no, David, I'm handling this. We can work this out. She wasn't going to shoot. And then he says, and I quote, no, she was going to shoot because I would have done the same. And I'm like, oh, okay, David, nice. Okay, I'm just here with a target on my forehead, apparently, next to you. So,
yeah, I felt really nervous about David. Oh, and just for the record, just for taunts and tease, this chicken's really good, Angel.
It looks very good.
And you're enjoying that white rice, even though I'm on a no-carb diet. F you.
Ooh, that does hurt.
Hey,
No.
I just had baked spaghetti about an hour ago, so.
Yeah, I feel you. But moving
This
on.
is why.
Okay,
this,
moving on.
yeah, this
Let's
is
get back
why,
to topic. Let's get back to topic.
Yeah,
but
this is why I avoid the food channel on my Discord.
felt-
But anyway, go ahead.
I feel a little, I guess you could say, I'm not going to say confused, but a little bit worried when he said, oh, so it's all me? I'm all alone? Fine. You and you people can look out for yourself or look out for your own. I was like, oh, so he's a bit of a crybaby and he kind of does feel alone. So do I side with him or do I side with this group that's terrified of him? Like, what do I do? So I chose the gray area, which I laid out 3 areas. You could be the gray area, which is you make good and bad choices, which I did. You can be the selfless guy, try to help out everyone, which could get you in trouble. Or you could be Mr. Selfish. So I'm always in the gray, unfortunately. So
Okay.
I'm trying to start that new system.
And you think that, and you believe that Mr. Selfish is siding with David, with your brother?
In a sense, yes. In a sense,
Okay.
but it could also be applied to, hey, you're being selfish and not looking out for him.
Okay. Okay. So then you guys make this trek, I guess through
And
the
then
no man's
yeah,
land.
like a highway thing.
Yeah, the highway thing. You're trying not to be seen. There's the whole helicopter propeller
Oh,
portion.
Wait, did you guys already talk about who the person you saved or no?
I was actually about to mention that. We almost forgot about that because I apologize. I mentioned that a little earlier, and then we skipped that. My bad. But yeah, it's whoever you chose to, that was an interesting choice. Whoever you chose to die but ended up living anyway finds you, and awkward conversations.
Oh,
away.
trust me, mine was the most awkward because I wanted to save Ava due to loyalty because she was like, I don't know if you guys chose to save her, but she was like the guy, or well, not the guy, the girl to really have your back and everything. But unfortunately, Trip lived, and I was like, oh man, if I remember right, he was gonna kick my ass last time I saw him. Well, he said he was gonna end my face.
Yep.
Who ended up with Trip being alive at the beginning of this? So
Here.
it was me.
Me, you, Carson, and I think
Oh,
that's
we got
it.
split
Okay.
room.
So everybody else is Ava. Okay. So
Alright.
we're split in between. I actually don't know what happens with Ava at the helicopter propeller because for me, we were going in order from lightest to heaviest, and I don't think that Ava was the heaviest of the group. So what? I actually don't know what happened there.
Trip actually lives longer than Ava.
Mm-hmm.
Ava
Oh,
died.
really?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Ava died when immediately after she catches you when you're walking across the tree and the walker comes out of the car.
Oh, the car. Really? She dies that?
Really? I did not know
Really?
that.
That
Yeah, the
quick?
walker
Wow.
jumps out of the car and cuts her off mid-sentence when she says, "You have to be more careful," and just throws her off the
Oh.
cliff.
Wow, I think that.
Oh.
literally-
Oh, that's a little ironic. She
That-
says you have
Wow.
to be careful, but she's not.
That may literally be Ava gets like 10 minutes of screen time in this episode, and then what? That is.
I thought her
Go
death
ahead.
was hilarious, and David's reaction to it, because it all plays out like really quickly, or maybe there's some gap in my game. There had to have been.
Yeah.
He falls down. David's like, Ava, no, she saved me so many times. Okay, let's go.
Just the dialogue.
That was it.
Oh, we see how much you care about Ava for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Did
In
Well,
my
the,
anyway,
playthrough,
so,
Dave
as I was
instead-
saying.
Yeah,
That's
my playthrough,
hilarious.
David was all like, "Oh, she would kick my ass if she knew I was up here crying over her."
I gotta
I got the
look
polls
that up
if you
now.
need
That
them.
scene, I got
Actually, as a side note, I read someone's review on the finale, and they put it as a negative about Ava's death being hilarious, and then at the end is like, I take it back. Ava's death was hilarious. Keep it in.
I got now. I literally want to look it up now because that sounds way too.
Do you-
Again, stories they have to merge into this big finale, so we got to link the paths somehow.
So here's a question. When she falls off, like, you don't actually see her die. She like dies off screen, right?
Yes.
Or do you actually? Okay. Which is very similar to what happens with Trip, because
Right.
Trip
Yeah.
falls off screen
Yeah.
when he was trying to go through the propeller thing.
But let's be fair, he did bang his. From what I saw, he did bang his head on like the metal pipes there. So even if you like say somehow he miraculously survived, Kenny phenomenon, I'm calling it, then he's gonna be really dazed and confused.
He'll have amnesia, which could be a fun little story. I don't
Well, I
know,
mean,
but
the ending game, credits or whatever they were confirmed that Trip and Ava are dead.
Oh, that's right, because they were.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, I guess, some more. But yeah, at least Trip went out fighting, whereas Ava went out giving. Whereas Ava went out giving parental advice.
Trying to attack Trip just shakes it off.
Yeah,
but Ava dies.
Like that.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that then. About Ava's dying that way.
Yeah.
Although the way that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Trip lets out some very quotable lines when it happens, though.
Oh, yeah, that was another thing. It's like someone said, "Oh, Trip, your Abraham is showing."
Really?
Walker attacks him and he goes, "Shit my nuts."
Oh, that's right.
I don't think I remember that part. Okay.
I'm glad he died in my playthrough and favored that
good old Florida. Potentially, I don't know.
I think Andrew definitely prefers the Ava death, I guess. So it was a little bit more entertaining.
I want to look it up now. Crap.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
But yes, they go across the overpass. I think you and Gabe have a nice little heart-to-heart up there, actually, depending on how you've been treating him.
I personally loved that.
Yes.
He was all surprised by Gabe being distant from David in this episode compared to how loyal he was in the last episode.
Not really,
you know what? I don't want to talk about that because you know what? I was on the board where I was ready to like murder him. Like, you know what, Gabe? I'm hoping you die in the next episode. You a little piece of crap.
I was ticked at him when he revealed about me and Conrad. That was we had that moment, but I will say I was actually not surprised because I feel like when because when you're a child you look up to your father. That's your big role model usually as a man. And unfortunately, when the apocalypse happened, there was that distance. So when he finally sees, back in episode 2, when he sees his dad at the front gates and he's just like, he's with the big force, there's got to be like this moment of like that's his Superman coming out of the clouds. And so he has this huge expectation for it. But I really think that scene of what happened at the gallows, because that was really the first time he ever saw his father truly like show that inner rage to the extent of killing someone point blank in front of him. I think that shattered something.
I think that first of all, Carson's opinions of Gabe is actually a fairly common opinion. There are a lot of people who don't particularly care for Gabe at all. I actually really liked him a lot.
Really?
So that scene was,
I like.
So that scene was actually like really special for me, especially when we were talking about, I think when we were talking about how he sees his father right now, and because he was saying, I wanted to be just like my dad when I grew up, and I asked him, so do you still feel that way now? It connects really well. This is getting a little bit ahead later into the episode, but it's connected to what I'm talking about. But I don't know how many of you have seen the scene when Gabe dies.
I have.
Gabe does have a death scene here.
I looked it up just right now.
One of the biggest things that really got to me personally in that scene was Gabe telling Javier, I know you weren't my father, but you were a really awesome dad. Yeah. Like that really got to me, and it seemed to connect really well with this conversation that we had with him here on the freeway.
I was very touched by that scene on the highway. I love the idea of being someone who's looked up to, like in the fact that I earned it, not that I'm demanding it, but like the fact of hearing someone say, when I grow up, I want to be like you. Like you are my...
Yeah.
I think that just fills your ego, Logan. No kidding.
Shush. It was actually just... Because I like it because it makes me feel like it kind of like reassures me that what I'm doing is the right thing, that it's doing good by something, and that I'm not just doing this for myself.
I think at some point, I don't remember what the chronological order is, but at some point you also talk with Clementine and David as well. And
yes, you're
depending on what happens in the previous episodes, Clementine either forgives David or doesn't forgive David about AJ. I had her not forgive David for AJ, and a whole bunch of viewers told me that they never actually saw that before. They always seem to see Clementine forgiving David. I don't know what I did that caused her to not forgive David.
You hardened your Clementine, just like you hardened all your characters.
Yes.
Well,
Did you guys have Clementine forgive him or not forgive him? I'm just curious.
I think I had her forgive her. I don't know. There was a very weird tension between the two. I can't really tell you either way. They seemed to bond over talking about AJ, so that may mean that she forgave him. Like, I guess this was her operating under the knowledge that she knew that AJ had survived and was somewhere off site of Richmond, and maybe that's what, depending on what Lingard was able to tell her.
I thought it had something to do with season 2 endings. Like maybe because you had the Wellington thing or something.
Maybe. That could be right. I don't know what the formula is or what the algorithm is for that.
It might be also like certain words you have to like make them choose. Like you choose a certain dialogue, it could then have an effect of like if she will or will not forgive.
Could be a number of things, yeah. So is Hark here currently the only person who had Clem not forgive, or did anyone else here in this call see her not forgive David? All right.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
All right. I don't know what I did, but
that's fine.
Just, like I said, you hardened it. You're like, I'm a tough girl. I'm never gonna forgive anyone. Or snarky Clem. Snarky Clem.
Could be snarky. Yeah, it actually that might have been all the snarky Clem choices I made in season 2. My Clem was definitely very snarky. Okay, so then after that, I'm trying to remember. Carson, do you remember what you played it like really recently? Yeah. What happened after that?
So after we get all past the helicopter, and then let's say Trip dies.
Yes.
Or Ava, yeah, sure.
We get to the water tower where we're trying to get to the generator, but you have to cover yourself in gunk, which you do. Do you want to get to like the dialogue choices? Because after you do, it's then like David wants to like book it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He wants to book it. Gabe. Everybody else wants to stay at Richmond. Gabe decides to go with his dad. You find out later it wasn't because he actually wanted to leave. It's because he was trying to convince his dad to come back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
Because I didn't see that scene.
Oh, okay. Maybe not everybody knows that.
Nope.
Yeah, that was the real. That was the real reason Gabe went with his dad, is because he wanted to try to convince his dad to come back to Richmond.
Okay.
And then you end up with the giant choice, which actually determines one of the which of the many multiple endings you end up getting.
I have the proposals right here if you need some.
Well, let's hear the choices first. Harp.
Well, first of all,
can I
go ahead.
In just a second?
Yes, go ahead.
In my notes, I wrote, I don't know if people had this, but you're kind of forced to Kate or not. And I thought just an absurd moment was you're covered in guts, and then, oh, hi.
I remember that.
Could you just not? It just seemed like someone that was just absurd to me.
Right,
that's a good point.
You're good.
Oh, you smell like shit.
For the
that's a good,
even worse. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yes, that's a good point, which does spark. That is, I actually didn't think about that. The fact that he was all covered in the zombie guts, but she does that, or she doesn't do that, and instead, basically tells Javier in front of David that she should have never have loved both of them.
Oh no!
And because that was the opportune time to say that.
When he has when there were 2 AK-47 in a locker within sight.
Yeah, and then you have to decide whether to fight David or to tell David, or go more of the Gandhi route.
I love you, brother.
I'm curious how many people kept the promise with their grandfather, basically who fought him versus who just kept saying "I love you" instead.
I just kept saying "I love you."
Yeah, I kept saying "I love you," but I had no idea that was actually, according to this, I had no idea that was actually tied into that promise to your father. I just was doing it because I was trying to have him forgive me and to just let his anger out, but just to stop, that he didn't have to. Because I knew that if I fought him, that was just going to rile that fire up even further and just be feeding into itself until one of us died, and I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up something really quick. Depending on how what you did in season 2 affects how Clementine breaks up the fight. If you didn't shoot Kenny, she just holds a gun to David's head, whereas she fires a shot at his shoulder if you did shoot him.
That's right, because she says something about how she had seen it in a similar fight, and she didn't want to. That's right.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Clementine Clementine did not shoot at David for me because I did not.
And he shot her in the shoulder. She shot him in the shoulder with me.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
that is super interesting.
Did you want the polls or no?
Go ahead, Carson.
Okay.
So what did you say to David about Kate? 54, well, I'll round it all up. 55% said they confessed their love for Kate. 29% came clean about their relationship. 15% denied having a relationship with Kate, but David didn't believe him. And about 1.6 said nothing.
So many multiple choices with these now.
Yeah. But 62% did show their love for David, and only 39, 38 fought back.
Jacob, what were you saying?
I was just saying, confessing their love and coming clean about the relationship, isn't that basically the same thing?
In a sense, yeah.
I guess.
I chose episode 4. I was like, I love her, but I know this is going to get complicated, so I'm just going to say no. I just can't. I can't do this. Not to my brother, because I didn't want to backstab my brother, because I was like, this is probably going to end bad, and it did regardless.
I genuinely thought he was going to take it better. I thought he was going to be more of an adult handling it and not turn to, here comes the pipe wrench, here it comes. I thought he was going to be more up for talking. He wasn't.
Did you?
I was going to ask real quick. Did you requite Kate's feelings in your episode 4 or? Okay.
No.
All right.
No,
did you?
Either. I didn't either.
I did, and
okay.
even in the moment, I was like, "This is not good at all." But I genuinely feel like I feel like they have chemistry. I feel like they deserve each other. She deserves a better relationship than the one she was in, and I did not want to see her have to force her. So I want to give her some sort of, I want to give her some hope, some sort of like, no, you're worth more than this sort of thing.
Oh, I totally believe that there was chemistry between them. There could have been chemistry between them if you played it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and that Kate definitely deserves somebody better than how David was treating her, allegedly treating her.
Wait a minute. This means that you and me, Hark, again, are in the minority with that. When he says, did you tell Kate that you have feelings for her? Yeah, us three are in the minority. All 4 of us were in the minority because a lot of people didn't confess their feelings.
I guess. But yeah.
But just for a funny comment, I love that look when you tell him first, I love you. David just goes, what?
He was surprised. He was shocked. Did anyone hear? Andrew, Mark, did you guys fight back when it came time for throwing punches, or
no?
Okay.
But it's funny because
you wanted to?
No, not that. It's funny because as you guys know, that I pursued the relationship with Kate and I confessed my love. But when after the fight, it's like I kept saying I love you. It said you kept your promise to your father, but it's like, wouldn't technically, even though I didn't know that David was alive, wouldn't getting with my brother's wife technically count as me not being a good brother? So
again, it's just the timelines, and I was telling them this earlier.
Plot twist: the brother gets with the brother's wife. The main character gets with the brother's wife and screws over Pa's promise.
Right.
I was a little bothered by that too, because I think that keeping your promise to your dad can mean a lot of things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't practice tough love, because I think with David you needed to practice tough love. Mm-hmm. I think that if I hit David off the side of the head when he was acting like that and knocked him out, I think that that's still staying true to my promise with my dad.
I can see that,
because at that stage he's being a danger to himself and he's being a danger to his family. And he's doing things that he's going to regret when he sobers up. Yeah, so I think defending myself and knocking him out.
He was being the bad brother first. He broke the promise first. Was
something that could very well also have been being a good brother.
It's all up to a different interpretation on that.
So a nice brotherly fight.
Nice brotherly
happens.
fight.
If you can call it a fight, I got just a butt whooping. It hurt to watch having a pipe wrench. It just was not. Apparently, depending on how you treat your Clem, she could. Her choices. This is the kind of choice where you don't get an actual say in it, but Clem can either choose to side with you or go after David, sort of thing.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes and no,
So-
actually. Yes and no. She can actually go with you, or like regardless if you choose that, or she says, "Hey, wherever you go, I'm gonna go opposite."
Okay.
She does say that.
Yeah.
But depending
So
on
the-
the choices, she can choose to specifically go after David and Gabe, or specifically after Kate.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
So the branching of that leads to the different endings has a lot of factors. One big factor is whether or not you personally choose to go after David and Gabe, or stay in Richmond with Kate. That's one factor. Another factor is the choices that you played Clementine through during her flashbacks in this season. Whether or not you accepted or rejected Ava's offer, whether or not you injected or didn't inject AJ, whether or not you did or did not spit at David's face during the flashback. All of those factor in, because that determines whether or not Clementine is willing to go with you with whatever it is you're doing, or if she does the opposite of whatever you're doing. And I think that there also are some pieces that are affected by season 2 as well. I think some of the season 2 things affects this too.
A little bit.
Somebody-
Just a tad small bit.
Yeah. Somebody said that whether or not you betrayed her and took the deal with Conrad might affect that as well. I'm not sure about that.
I think it
Yeah.
personally would, because then
I think
she
it
would
could-
have little trust to you.
I think
Probably.
I can agree with that. Depending on whatever you did, like for me, I know I killed Lingard, so maybe she really appreciated that sense of like I was doing that to help
Yeah.
her find AJ. There has to be some sort of your
Yeah.
standings with her affects that.
It kind of stinks with me because I had, if as many people know, I had such problems with my saves, my game saves,
Oh no!
that
No.
Conrad got resurrected.
Oh no!
So he never actually died, which
Crap.
means that I betrayed Clementine when I didn't actually betray Clementine.
Oh, crap.
So for my decision, when it came down to that, she actually did the opposite of what I was doing. And I don't know if that would have been different if my save had been correct the entire time. And
Oh,
so
I did.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
I did 2 playthroughs of episode 5, and the biggest difference between my second playthrough was I didn't shoot Conrad, and Clementine still split up with me in both playthroughs. So I don't really think that matters at all.
Okay. So that depending on what Clementine does and depending on what you do, you either are able to save some people, save all the people, or some combination. Gabe can die, Gabe can live. Kate can die, Kate can live.
David
could die, David could live.
David could die and David could live. Yes.
It was.
Did you go after Gabe or with Kate? That is the bigger decision we have right now. Because
Did you want to give the polls for that?
yeah, the poll
Carson?
is 59.6% went with Kate and sealed Richmond Breach. 40.4% chose to go after Gabe. So I'm assuming that there's a good portion of people who went after Gabe.
I went after Gabe. Who else did? Who else did what? I'm
I
just
went after
curious.
Gabe
With or without Clementine?
without Clementine.
Okay, and I went without Clementine.
I went to Richmond with Clementine.
Okay.
Oh, I went to Richmond with just Kate.
With just Kate.
Yeah,
and
Clementine went after Gabe.
Okay.
What about you, Andrew?
I did the same as Carson. Yep.
Yeah!
Just with Kate, and Clementine went with Gabe. Okay.
High five to Andrew.
Well, I didn't enjoy the end of this game at all, and so maybe not high five me yet. We made the same choices, I guess.
Okay,
I
we'll get to that.
Okay, wait. Are we going to talk about the Richmond bit or the Dave and Gabe bit first?
Well, I want to hear what Mark did.
Oh, sorry.
First.
Yeah.
And I also was curious as to why the people made the choice that they made. Go ahead.
Okay, so Clementine went with me, and I went to seal the Richmond breach.
Okay. Anybody want to share why they made the decision to do what they did?
I wasn't a fan of the love triangle. Like
Okay.
this is the second season in a row now they've done a love triangle. In season 2 we had Rebecca, Alvin, and Carver, and now we've got David, Kate, and Javi. I'm just like, Kate, leave me alone, please. I'm gotta go get my nephew because I'm in the minority of Hark. Gabe was actually my favorite new character in this season.
Oh, really?
I love Gabe. Yeah.
I'm in the minority. I was on Gabe's side when he outed Javi to shooting Conrad because Javi was all like, ugh, your life is precious, and all Gabe wanted to do was help support their plan in rescuing David, but nobody would let him do him. So I feel like he was just saying anything to win an argument. He didn't really mean anything by it, but regardless, yeah. So I was sad when David died because his comments about raising kids I thought was interesting. I think Hark said something similar in his live stream.
Mm-hmm. How about the other people? Go ahead, Logan. I think I saw your hand up.
Sorry, trying to click over for a second. I chose Richmond because I felt like, similar to how I did with Kenny back in season 2 at the end of that, I felt like there was some sort of cycle I was trying to wander myself into, and I don't know, after seeing how he reacted, I just kind of unfortunately gave up on Dave, seeing how, and I agreed with Kate, like the people of Richmond, they didn't sign up, they had no idea Joan was doing those horrible things to those other community. Those were technically innocent lives. Sure, they were benefiting off of horrible, immoral things, but they had no idea that what they were benefiting from was immoral. And we kind of showed up and in a matter of one weekend destroyed what probably they spent over 13 months building and thriving off of, and we just destroy it in a weekend. I felt like I had to give something back to that community to I felt like I owed it to them to try and at least make something right and at least get the walkers out and put a giant board in front of that very flimsy fence that we left. Because real quick, that's something that we never mentioned. They mentioned like, oh my gosh, the Kate's truck blew up a whole big hole in the fence so the herd could get through. But real quick, like in season 4 when you were stealing a truck in the first place and there was that flimsy fence that a bunch of walkers broke through, they just broke through that fence anyway, so technically their defenses were already breached. But anyway, yeah, that's why I chose Richmond over Dave and Gabe. I felt Gabe had his choices in life. I tried to make my stance, and now that I know that apparently he was actually trying to also get him to Richmond, I feel somewhat better about it.
Carson?
But first off, I had to plan this out because I was thinking in my head, okay, am I going to make the right decision? Am I going to make the wrong decision? If Clem's going to go the opposite of where I'm going, that settles that. So I felt like, okay, 2 people don't outweigh, like I'm going to assume like 1,000 people in that town. I'm just assuming 1,000. So I chose to save the majority, and I kind of caused it. I felt a little partial blame to myself, but I don't know. I didn't feel like I wanted to save Gabe because this was just like my inner anger at him. I was like, oh, I hope this is the episode I get to get Gabe in trouble and he's going to be in a tough situation. So
you're such a great uncle.
I know. Oh, it's awesome. Hey,
when your brother has kids, Carson, I'm going to show him this video.
Yeah. Hey, kids, do what your dad says. And if you're going to don't do exactly what I say in the zombie apocalypse, if you screw me over or backstab me, you're going to be in trouble later. I'm just such a great dad later. But I felt that it was better to close the breach, like what Logan was saying, because they were innocent and everything, and all these people, like, they had the whole world shook upside down. But I felt Clementine was really capable of handling herself. And not because of plot armor, but I just knew, like, okay, she's smart. She knows what she needs to do.
Okay. Mark or Andrew?
Okay, so besides the fact that, of course, I was in a relationship with Kate, I feel like there was a bigger picture. I was looking at the bigger picture that to make this, to save the community, because, again, we're repeating ourselves, but it is true. It's like they were, some of them were innocent people, and also to make the community viable. So that's why I went to go save Richmond.
And Andrew?
Yeah, I feel kind of similar to Mark that it had nothing to do with Kate, and I thought even in episode I think 3 or 4 that we had our plan was to let's make it work here. Let's expose the badness, and then we're gonna make this city a place that we can actually stay. They got a lot of good stuff going for them, and then they like forgot that plan or it fell apart. But so the idea of Richmond's trumping the other stuff, it was a difficult choice. Eventually, if you circle back to the dad and cancer, it's his choice. So, I didn't fight him, though. I guess this lacked a lot of nuance. Where's the tackle him to the ground and hold him down and say, "Listen, I love you, man. We can't be doing this. We have to do this for the family." No, it's get knocked around like a rag doll or beat him to it's very black and polarizing. I felt this episode a lot.
Two different extremes that I don't.
Yeah,
there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, we're about to going to the Richmond side. I'm very curious if the going after Gabe and David, if you still get to encounter Samurai Jesus, because that was ridiculous.
Samurai Jesus.
No, I was gonna say that entire sequence was the most absurd and awesome moment in all of Walking Dead Telltale. First, I want to hang on before I get ahead of myself there, because that was, I apologize. That'll be the one time where I start talking like Carson the entire time. Is just talking about that scene alone. I'm sorry, but just before I get ahead of myself,
man. I forgive you.
Okay, but sorry, but
my rationalization of that choice was Clementine already declared that she was going to do the opposite of what I was going to do, and I thought that me talking or going after David made more sense than her talking or going after David. So that was part of the reason why I ended up deciding to go after David and Gabe, and then the second reason, it was more of a selfish reason. I was thinking, I'm not really interested in hanging around Kate right now, but I really, really, really want to save my nephew. It had nothing to do with David. It was less about me saving David and more about saving Gabe. And so that was the decision that I made for that. To answer your question about Samurai Jesus, you do see Samurai Jesus, but I have a feeling, and I haven't seen what happens if you stay in Richmond. I have a feeling that you actually got to see Samurai Jesus in actual action, whereas I only just barely saw him at the city, but didn't actually see him in action per se. So I'm gonna have to take a look at see what
it was awesome. It was awesome.
So crazy.
If it is, it sounds about.
Why are you shaking your head, Andrew? Why are you shaking your head? It was awesome.
It was the dumbest, most immersive
version. I loved it. It was gratuitous.
I want to hear. Wait. I want to hear the Andrew. Go ahead, Andrew. Tell me about this, because I haven't seen the scene. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. It makes it's jarring. I felt out of place. It felt like, do I have to read some comics that he does this in?
Yep.
Yes.
In order to even understand what is happening now. And
yes.
Absolutely.
I haven't read those. So
yeah, he hasn't read the comics. Yeah.
What? And the button.
I can. Go ahead.
The button game to open the gate was pointless. We've talked about in previous of these chats, the idea that some of the gamey elements of this are, to me, why are you making me do this? It makes no difference which button you press. There's no consequences if you're slow on pressing the buttons. I just thought, and Samurai Jesus and his friends running around swinging swords, they're riding horses. It was this is.
Oh, yeah.
I get that you could think it's cool, sure. I just don't think it's cool.
Well, no, I know, and I agree. There were moments in the game throughout the whole season where there would be those quick time events, when you have to push an arrow to do something. Two that jump out at me is one in episode 3 when Clem saves you and you have to push an arrow to grab her hand. I'm like, what would have happened if you failed that quick time event? Would you just flop over? And or another one is in episode 4 when you have to push down to open the blinds. what would have happened if you failed that? Would you just accidentally smash your head into the window? It's like, Javi, that's not how you open blinds. I agree. Sometimes there were random injected moments where it really just could have been a cutscene and they didn't have to keep you awake.
I totally understand Andrew, if he has not read the comics, that maybe some of the samurai stuff and the horses stuff is a little bit out of place. Not, again, as someone who didn't actually see any of that stuff, I can imagine what exactly the Samurai Jesus stuff entailed, and it sounds like it's on par with the way that he actually is portrayed in the comics, because Jesus is very ninja. So me just imagining what Samurai Jesus would be like, I can see that as being, and he actually is semi-decently ninja as well in the TV show too. So, but like I said, for someone who hasn't read any of that, yeah, it seems like out of nowhere.
Oh, it's awesome!
Totally
It was awesome. It's like watching, it's like looking at you like, oh my God, our God is an awesome God. Wow, he can actually kill people with ninja styles.
It's the second coming. Go ahead. What are you gonna say, Andrew? You were about to say something.
There's a scene. There's a little moment where the guy with the beard and the not tie-dye shirt, but kind of this greenish shirt and a fanny pack. He's down below while you're walking on the highway or headed there on top of the buildings.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And they're just like, look down at him 10 feet away. Is like, well, he's by himself, so F that guy. And like, it seems like, why is he just left alone and just incompetent, and people are just getting killed by these slow walkers and in the same world where that's supposed to be believable, that someone who's been in an apocalypse fighting zombies for years now can easily be dispatched by a couple slow moving ones. In the same world, Ninja Jesus is riding around on his horse. Like, I mean, it's just kind of really jarring. Like, tension.
There are odd bits, like when Kate crashed her car into the fence, and I guess this would be more like something that's what's the word? Like, it doesn't have very good continuity, where Kate crashes her van into the fence and it explodes. So that should have killed anybody who was nearby. But then it'll jump to a scene where you see people running away and walkers like 5 feet behind them. Like, why did you let them get that close to you before you decided now you should start running away?
Yeah.
It's like, how did walkers just like leap towards you? Or I don't know. But scenes like
you'll find by going to Sesame Street and asking them what the word of the day is, and they'll tell you it's contrived.
That is not very good. Very
contrived.
Very smart.
Very fair.
But
very fair.
So
one thing I will point out though is that back in, I think, episode 2, when you first meet Jesus and if you tie his hands together with the zippy tie, whatever you call them, people were talking about the feasibility of him just breaking out of those things. I did see a couple YouTube videos of people showing how to actually do that. How to break so I said, so it can actually be done realistically. So that isn't far-fetched. That part's not far-fetched.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about the Samurai Jesus part, but that part is legit.
No, it was awesome. That's
so is that the cue? Like, should we start with Richmond first or the Dave and Gabe bit first?
I preferably want to know what happened to Gabe if you went after him.
Well, I want to let Carson talk about what he thought about the Samurai Jesus scene while we're still.
Oh, I think topic. I made it very clear. Oh, it was awesome.
You thought it was awesome.
It was like,
okay.
I was like, oh my God, I'm shooting all these things, and he's riding a horse and chopping off things. God, I want to be like this guy for some reason.
Carson, have you read the comics or seen the TV show?
No, I have not, because I'm trying to catch up. I'm watching currently, and people are gonna probably bash me for it, or they're gonna say, oh, I'm a Marvel lover. But I'm watching the Flash TV series. I'm on season 3 right now.
That's fair.
Okay, so it wasn't jarring for you then?
No, I was like, our God is an awesome God. No, just he came down from heaven, just chopping up with swords.
And I'm
with
just
a man bun
with both of them. I think it's absurd and it's awesome for its own reasons.
Yeah. But I will say this: it's not walkers, it's muertos. It's the muertos.
It's muertos. You got to pronounce it. Yeah.
Like muertos.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you guys had a lot more gamey things.
Oh yeah,
because we didn't. The rest of us who went after Gabe, we didn't have any of that.
It was
really.
Yeah, just a quick summary. You go there. you go down to Richmond with Kate. You see what I thought were like, what the hell are we dealing with? Mongol hordes now? Like, are we dealing with people on horseback now? I mean, it's like, what's happening here? Then it's like, oh, it's Jesus. He apparently forgave me, even though he really didn't like me at the end of episode 3. He thought that because I killed Badger, he didn't like that. I was like, oh, he likes me now. Okay. Then you're closing down a gate. I'm like, okay, cool. Now you're on top of a construction equipment opposite Clem because she was with me, both armed with AK-47s on top of a freaking constructor car, driving down the road. And I'm just like, what is this Walking Dead anymore? I feel like this is Call of Duty now. This is Black Ops Zombies suddenly.
The only difference between me and his is that I didn't have Clem on my side. It was just me just gunning him down all by myself. I was like, holy crap, this is scary.
I remember outright saying, this feels like a fanfic suddenly. Like we just accidentally like we merged into an alternate universe where everyone's like, and then Kenny's going to come flying down with wings.
It'll happen one day. It'll happen.
And then Jesus and Kenny will Dragon Ball fuse into the luckiest man of all time, and he will just save the world. The zombies will just it was that close to being absurd.
It sounds like your branch was the action branch, whereas the David and Gabe branch was the Fields. It was the Fields branch.
And
is what it's sounding like to me.
And we technically, because I don't know about you guys, but I know in mine, even after saving Richmond, I still got to be able to jump back to going after Dave and Gabe and still get those feels as well.
Yeah.
Did Gabe survive or die for you?
It was this. I think it may have been the same sequence where when I got there. Sorry, we'll link back into Dave and Gabe. When everything got calmed down, you and Clem went out after on a motorcycle that just happened to be there. I'm like, who cares? Jesus is on a horse.
Yeah.
We have a motorcycle. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we catch up. You find a car that's been crashed. Dave was already killed inside the car crash, and Gabe was down. So I think that's where it just kind of merges perfectly. This was just some other extra bump they added in somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's different. It's different. If you end up going after Gabe and David, different things happen whether or not Clementine is with you. If Clementine is with you, you can successfully save both Gabe and David. If she's not with you, then David will end up dying, and Gabe will survive, and you'll have a feels moment with your dying brother. And then there's the choice whether or not when he dies, there's a choice whether or not Gabe is going to take it upon himself to shoot his own father in the head, or if you shoot for him instead. And then the aftermath of that is you come back, and for me, you still get to see Jesus and his man bun. But I think the battle has pretty much died down at that point, and Kate ends up disappearing. You don't actually see her, and they determine that she's dead. I know that there is a scene where she turns into a walker. I didn't get that. It's just she was gone, and people just assume she died. So I don't know what that means or what I did to cause that. Did any of you guys who stayed in Richmond have her die or disappear by any chance? Have Kate die or disappear? Okay.
No, she just was doing her thing with 2 people in AFKs.
I have no idea what. Okay, I have no idea what causes her to turn into a walker or her to just be gone. I don't know.
I do.
Go ahead.
It's based on if you went to save Gabe or David by yourself or with Clementine. Because if Javi went solo to rescue them, Kate just disappears, but you get to see Walker Kate if both of them went to rescue them because of what happens to David. You also, if you and Clem both go to save Gabe and David, and you end up saving both of them, you actually have a choice because David feels like he can't change, and he feels distancing himself from the rest of you will be best for everyone. So you have the choice to tell him to keep on walking, or to tell him to come back to Richmond with you.
And if you tell him to keep on walking, then Kate's alive. But if he comes back to Richmond with you, then she's dead.
I haven't actually seen what happens if you tell him to keep walking. I only saw what happens if you tell him to come back.
Okay.
And they came back and killed the zombie Kate.
Oh,
gotcha. So that branching stuff happens, and then we get to the end where you have a moment with Gabe or with Kate or with David, depending on who's still alive. If Conrad is still alive, like the resurrected Conrad that I had, we can have a short moment with him.
Yep,
Okay.
we also get cameos from Conrad and Dr. Lingard.
Okay.
True, Lingard, if he stayed alive.
I got Lingard alive.
Okay.
And then I was happy that after 5 episodes of denouncing any like romantic love for Kate, I finally was able to flirt with Jesus. So I was happy with that.
That's such a bad person.
Jesus swings in my direction, apparently.
Oh no, that led to, like, you know how in the upper left corner, like they'll say like a Clementine will remember that. Trip felt betrayed. That led to one of my favorite one of those moments in the upper left when I said something to Jesus like, "No, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make this place good again." And he said, "I like that you're willing to do that." In the upper corner, it said, "Jesus admires your commitment." I'm like,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Someone in your chat mentioned something about Javi swinging both ways because he's a baseball player.
Oh, shut.
Yeah. One of my viewers said that.
Nice.
I actually think he only swings one way. I think he only swings towards guys. I think, from what I believe.
Oh.
I think he does.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting.
So then you give Clementine a haircut as a. What I thought was really neat is that when she had her hair down and you were cutting her hairstyle for a moment was the exact same hairstyle she had back in season 1. I believe they did that on purpose. And then Javier keeps going and cuts it even shorter. Various viewers had different opinions on what they thought of the outcome, the final haircut, but you know.
I thought it was like, seems a little familiar to Mari, but I'm gonna keep silent about it.
I'll grab your hat.
And I think then, based on your decisions in the previous episodes, Clementine will either want to stay in Richmond.
No, she always
Gabe. She always leaves, but doesn't she like? I thought there was something.
You get an option.
There's some variation.
I remember it. You get an option whether you want her to come back or if you want her to like be gone forever.
No, bring AJ
interesting.
or leave him be.
Oh, bring AJ back. I see.
Yeah, but for me, this was probably the funniest thing doing that whole haircut scenario is that you get an option when if Gabe is alive. If Gabe is alive, where you get to, when you're cutting her hair, you get to mention, hey, you, just to be clear, you know Gabe's got a Mondo crush on you. She's like, he does not. And you're like, oh, you do too? I do not. It's like, oh, it's happening. I knew this day would come. Oh my God, Gabe and Clementine finally are going to be like this with each other.
You were waiting for that?
Yeah, I was waiting for it. You should have saw me.
Okay.
You got to see it. You were like, oh,
I'm
it's
sure
happening. Oh my God.
Quite possibly one of the strangest way they implemented choices from previous episodes was if Gabe dies, how Clementine says goodbye to him depends on who she was with at the end of season 2. If you got the Kenny or
I saw one of those.
Yeah, if you get the Kenny or Wellington ending, she hugs him twice. If she got the Alone ending, she'll hold his hand and tell him to be brave for what comes next. But if she gets the Jane ending, she kisses him.
Yeah, I don't know how that would affect anything. That is interesting. I don't know.
Well, I could think of a couple of reasons. Like, for example, the reason I think if like Clementine kisses Gabe is because since Jane is considered the big sister, and that she was flirting with one of your guys you had a huge man crush on. Will not say his name. But I think it's because, maybe if like Jane could find love, then maybe I can too in the future.
That could be a reason. Yeah, that could be a reason.
I got a question. I'm curious what happens because you kill Lingard in order. My motivation to be able to find where AJ is.
Correct.
And if you don't kill him, does it make any difference in Clem leaving to go off to get AJ anyway?
When Lingard shows up, he says, "I'm not going to thank you for keeping me alive, but I will find something that will make me say thank you one day." And then he just tells you where AJ is anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Because I chose to keep Lingard. I was like, no, I don't assist in suicides.
So he basically is semi-thanking you for keeping him alive by giving you what you wanted at the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
You get rewarded. You get rewarded for keeping him alive in that sense, I guess. So, which I don't know. I personally think is a good way to do it. It makes sense to me. Okay. So then we get the credits, and then there's a little scene at the end. You've got your Marvel ending scene where you see
that's how you
little stinger at the end where
that's gonna hurt.
Clementine, like one of the words says Clementine's adventure continues or something along.
Clementine's story continues.
Continues. So there is a confirmed season 4,
or maybe just a small DLC episode.
I have my own theory about that actually, and I'll wait till we get to the end of that. But yeah,
I would like to hear Mark's theory on it.
And they had that cool. I think we already mentioned that. They had that cool idea where they showed, along with your choices, like the relationships you had with each main character.
I get that.
And it must have been saying they must have been saying they patched it later or something, because I got that.
It bugged out for me.
Oh.
I wish I got it, because I would have loved to have read that.
I'll tell you what keeps bugging out is like it happened in episode 4 and 5. You can see their eyes like turn super dark, like ghost-like.
I
don't think I saw that.
The only big glitch I had was in episode 3 with the disco party trees when their trunks were flickering. That was another thing, but anyway. But yeah.
So the season ends. So my question, I guess, to you is your thoughts on this finale, and your thoughts on the season as a whole, and whether or not this makes you feel like you're interested in season 4, or you think you're going to pass on season 4 after this. So who would like to share?
I can pee in the pool to
Go
go first and ruin it.
Go ahead, Andrew.
With little sour grapes. I'm probably not going to play any more Telltale games after this.
Not surprised.
It just didn't click with me. The first season, I was enthralled. I played the whole thing in one night. This one, if I wasn't talking with you guys about it, I probably wouldn't have kept playing it. And it may not be anything to do with it. Of course, it's personal taste, but I felt the choices forced, black and white. I felt things rushed and disjointed. I felt it didn't take enough time for me to care about any of the characters. There were just laugh out loud absurd moments of, really, those are the choices, or that's what you're gonna say. There were moments, I mean, that were fine, but overall, yeah, I'm not gonna play more. I mean, I might, but probably not. And I don't know, it just reaffirmed my, I'll just do tabletop gaming. Or as if I want complex stories with really open choices, and that your choices matter, I'm leaning in that direction.
I think what you're trying to say is that you just don't like forced decisions. You like open choice decisions, and you like characters who are like you build to grow. You grow with them. You care about them more. Is that what you're trying to say?
A little bit, I guess. It just didn't. I was impressed at moments. There's no doubt that it's been a while since I played a Telltale game, and was impressed with the idea that, wow, your choices really matter. But I thought the quality of the choice was like just too black and white, too polarizing. You gotta love Kate, or you have to despise her. You have to, like I said earlier, you have to be a beating, whipping boy, or you have to club your. I felt that they were just too stark of a decision. That certain characters' behaviors didn't make sense, or weren't consistent throughout. And I don't know. I stopped watching Game of Thrones. I stopped after a couple of seasons. Stopped watching Walking Dead. I just didn't like. Maybe it's just a life phase where I'm not into
It's okay.
that kind of stuff anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
change.
so that's my perspective on it. Enjoy talking about it with you guys, though. So that was the highlight.
So, and one thing I want to ask then, Andrew, since you said that, and I'll definitely preface this by saying Andrew's opinion is definitely not an uncommon one. I know a lot of people who have felt this exactly the same way he does with Telltale in general. People have felt that their glory days was during the, Walking Dead season 1 era, and now they're sort of like, a lot of people are saying that Telltale is doing way too many things all at once, and that is probably causing their games, the quality of their games, to be watered down because they have too many hands and too many pots all at once. Mm-hmm. But one thing I want to ask you though, Andrew, is you said that the choices are way too black and white, which I totally agree with you. Do you feel though that if they continually gave choices that were in the middle, that people would tend to gravitate towards the middle choices way more than the extremes? Because they're like, oh, it's a comfortable middle. That's got to be the best way to go about it. Is just find the third way. There's way 1, there's way 2, but there's this third way in the middle that I could take. Do you think that would just cause people to go down the middle more?
It's hard to say. I mean, if you look at the results, and I wrote down the results at the end of each of the plays, some of the choices were pretty well divided, like 60-40 or 50-50, close-ish. And then some of them stood on the ledge. 92% of people stood on the ledge. So I know it'd just be harder to program, very much harder to program. I get it. And they may. It would just be when you only have 4 buttons, I guess, providing 4 meaningful choices, it's going to be really hard. And I don't know that they would gravitate towards the middle. It would maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't have a clear perspective on that.
I just know that as a GM, whenever I present to my players 2 extremes, 80% of the time they try to find some sort of middle choice. 80% of the time, which that's actually what kind of happened with the end of my last campaign too. I gave them these really horrible choices. Like, well, isn't there like some sort of happy middle choice? And so that's the only thing that I was thinking when you were talking about that. Anyone else want to give their thoughts?
I'm saying this only I guess I'll go next only because I don't know if I'll be able to stay for the entirety after this, but I do want to say it's been great to still be on the board and get to talk about a game that definitely can spark discussions about this. So I'm going to now talk over that for a bit. So I would say that this season felt to me a lot smoother, a lot more of it felt more comfortable to me than when I was in season 2 as Clem. I felt like that was a very rough season for me in general because in season 1 I was controlling Lee, someone who I didn't know anything about his background, so it was very easy for me to put myself in his shoes and start making decisions that seemed to fit. But then in season 2, I had gone to know Clem. I knew about her upbringing with Lee, so to speak. So it was weird to just suddenly say, okay, now if you want this to make sense and to have some sort of continuity, be Clem now. And I'm like, I don't know how to be Clem. I knew how to be Lee because he was different, but I knew Clem's personality. Now I have to try and be that personality. So giving me a new third character, Javi, I felt that made the season overall a lot easier to approach. That I felt like I had more. Again, totally saying, yeah, these are all self-placed stress. This was all self-placed stress. Like I know people could just make Clem snarky and just a complete smartass to people if they wanted her to be. But I was trying to do that. That was something that I did myself. I will attest to that. But I felt I had more freedom. I felt more at ease when making decisions because I knew that this was a new character I was building. And I liked the idea of Clem once again being more an observer. I like this idea if they keep with this, that Clem is just being shaped by the people around her, that I'm not actually directly making the choices for her unless it's in those flashbacks, but that she's being just shaped. She's still sort of being raised by the environment around her. What's it like, that nature versus nurture argument or whatever? Yeah. I did think episode 5 was nice. I did think it felt resolving. The ending I had with the strengthen through solidarity or whatever. Clem, I liked that. I liked the ending I received. I personally think that they're actually going to make an episode 6 to this season because, and I'm looking at it right now. I can't show you because the glare of the screen would probably not work at all. But I'm looking on the PC version when you can scroll through the episodes in New Frontier. 1 through 5 fit very comfortably on the screen, yet they still provide me the option to scroll over 1 to the left. So now there is a blank spot next to episode 5, which I feel like they wouldn't even bother to put that in unless they knew that they were going to put a 6th thing in that spot in the future. So I think, call it me probably looking way too close into something or making a mountain out of a molehill, but I think, or anthill, whatever, but I feel like that could be maybe a sort of hint to me anyway that I think they are going to make a DLC episode that either will continue this or maybe feed a bit more into Prescott. I don't know. On my ending, Joan got away and vanished. We don't know. I don't know where she's at right now. So we can really say. I will say though that I was satisfied with this season. I am curious to see what will be in season 4, but especially considering how short season 2 compared to, I feel like I agree with Andrew on yes. I feel like they need to. I'm agreeing with both of you. They need to focus on one game at a time and really give their all because that'll be what made Walking Dead so amazing to people, as opposed to trying to just stay relevant through any means necessary by doing all of the. Oh, they released a DC movie. Do Batman. Oh, they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy. Make a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Oh, Game of Thrones season. They really need to just focus on something because I think they can do that.
Other thoughts?
I guess I'll go next.
Go ahead.
I've made this no secret, but throughout the podcast, I've said that this is probably the best season in terms of branching story paths, but the weakest in terms of story and characters. Because probably the most notable example is what you can do with Conrad. He's either executed in episode 2, devoured by walkers in episode 3 if you refuse to give him a weapon to defend himself, accidentally run over by Kate in episode 4 if you missed a QuickTime event, or he survives the whole season. And just stuff like that was just not in the previous seasons. But then, like everyone else says, I don't think the supporting cast was as strong as season 1, or even some of the characters in season 2, really. Like Jane, Luke, and Kenny still think, in my opinion, beat every supporting character in this season. But I agree with Lucky Jack or Logan, whatever he wants to be called by, that I think it's just going to be a quick DLC episode, because if you remember back, Telltale claimed that the reason why episodes 1 and 2 share the same title was because it was originally one big episode, but they split it in 2 parts because they couldn't fit it into one thing. And I call bull on that, because if that was the case, why would we only get 4 episodes instead of 5 episodes this season? Plus,
Right.
episode 2 was like an hour, 12 minutes tops,
Yeah.
whereas season 1 episodes were like 3 hours. So,
Yeah.
but I
Fair.
still liked this season. Plus, I think Telltale knows better than to stretch out the searching for AJ plotline over an entire season, like the search for Sophia in the TV show, because they already did kind of do this searching for AJ throughout this season. I don't think we need another season of that. I think just one more episode would suffice. Plus, there was a notable absence of a playable Clem flashback in this episode, so.
Jacob? I'm sorry, Mark? Sorry, Jacob already just talked. Mark?
Okay, so typically when it comes to Telltale games, the finale is usually the best episode, and I think here it's no different. I really enjoyed this episode. Despite a few gripes I had with it, overall it was great. Now the season as a whole, I think knowing that there's going to be a season 4, or at the very least a DLC episode, I think I can forgive its shortcomings a little bit more, because if this was the final season, I think it was the weakest season of the 3, because they didn't really focus that much on Clementine. and because we've got the episode left on a cliffhanger, and that's just not going to get resolved. So one thing I mentioned in an earlier Let's Talk episode is that I think one of the reasons why the quality of at least the Walking Dead series has diminished over the years is because Telltale lacked a long-term plan for the Walking Dead series. So I think now that they know that they're at least going to do one more episode or maybe even an entire season, maybe down the line I can look back at season 3 and say, okay, now that I finished season 4, when that eventually comes out, or the DLC episode, I can look back and appreciate season 3 for what it was, because there could be like little nuggets, I guess, for lack of a better term, planted in there, and it'll come back and I can appreciate it more down the line. But for right now, it is what it is, and it's all right. But I guess we'll have to wait to see what happens next to see if I can look back on it with greater appreciation.
Carson?
Well, first off, I don't want to take a sledgehammer to everyone's dream of a DLC or anything, but I don't see them doing a DLC for this. But I will say I am a little eager to see if they will do a season 4, which it's clear evidence that they will, and I really want them to do a season 4. But I'm only worried is like, okay, man, this is just me getting ahead of myself, thinking, okay, if we're gonna get to season 4, let's see, we got season 1, she was a child. Season 2, she's transitioning into like teenage years. Season 3, she's like, if I had to assume, she's like 13, 14 by now. Am I right?
13.
Okay, yeah. I'm just worried, like, okay, now is she going to hit the age of 15 and 16, and is she going to get into, like, the peak of her puberty years where she's going to start flirting with boys and everything? I don't want to see a love scene between those two unless they do it like season 2 where they just copped it out and everything. And that would be really good if they did that, because at least that would be good. Or it could probably be just my dream here. In season 4, they eventually hint, like Clementine hints, that she liked the little Gabentine idea, romance idea, and that would be really cool to see. I just need to see what you could do. Are we gonna do another character like with Javi, or are we gonna do Clementine? Which preferably I would prefer Clementine. We just get introduced to a new group and like a new society. Like, hey, this is a like when we saw Richmond, that was like an okay version. Like, if you think that was okay, wait till you get this place. This one is going to be really scary to be around.
So, Carson, are you saying that overall you really enjoyed this finale and also the season?
I enjoyed the finale, like based on my character, like on my ending, but like the story overall, I think it went pretty well. I think Jacob laid it out pretty well. Character wise, this was like really weak, but like overall and everything, this was really good. Now, what they could do in season 4 is improve on this on character story, because you really want to try and feel something with these characters. Is what I'm hoping to try and do, like get the feels.
And Carson, how would you rank this season to the other two?
I think season 2 is still one of the best. That one really had you on the edge. This is probably better. I'm not going to say the weakest, but it's a tie with season 1.
Okay. I'm going to ask you guys the same question that I asked at the very beginning of this season, and that is, how do you feel that Javier stood as a main protagonist?
I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
I think he did very well as a protagonist. It was, how do I describe it? It's like, at first you were like a little, okay, he's not the kind of guy I want as a protagonist, but let's just go with it and see what we can do. But then, like, when you're at the end of it, like, oh my God, I really want to make sure Javier lives. He's a really cool guy. This is awesome. I'm just hoping that he actually gets the good ending for himself, and I do mean also a happy ending for himself. But we'll skip that bridge. But overall, I think he was an okay protagonist. Like, not like Lee Everett protagonist, but like, hey, he's okay.
He was a character.
I feel like there are I'm trying to think of ways. Like, if I had to like sum up a character into like one word, I feel like a big thing with Lee back in season 1 was the idea of redemption. Like, because here he was in the real world, he was about to go to jail for, we I guess learn, presumably murder, but now he was able to turn that whole apocalypse, he was able to become something better with that. I feel like with Javier, it was more a sense of he was trying to work to, I guess, kind of a coming of age, become a man sort of thing. Like he was trying, like all his life, you know, he kind of, like everyone was saying, like he always had to depend on other people. He was a slacker or something. Like he got kicked out of baseball. He was kind of a bum back before the apocalypse happened. But now he was trying to, I know there's a word, I just can't think of it for some reason. I apologize. But it was basically like he's working hard to not redeem himself, because it's not like he did something really terrible that I can think of, but more that he's trying to mature and gain people's trust, approval, you know, feel like he's accomplished something. Like with his father mentioned, that legacy. My Javier was wanting to create something that, you know, was meaningful and may not be just to extend his life, but something that would leave a mark on the world that would improve it.
I think what you're trying to say is he's just trying to just survive, in a sense, right, Logan?
Not really. More that he's just trying to become selfless and, you know, step up. Like, just he wants to step up and take charge, and not just he wants to change. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you have the other three? Somebody. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next thing. If nobody wants to say anything else.
Okay, I'll go.
Go ahead.
So Javier, I think, was one of the best additions with this new season. And I think with Javier specifically, I think he had an advantage over even Lee and Clementine, the fact that he had flashbacks, and we got to learn more about him, like what he was before the apocalypse. And I really, really liked that aspect. And I guess by the end of the season, I was really happy with how my Javier turned out. And if he does appear in season 4, I'm looking forward to it.
I have a question. Here's a question for you, Mark. Would you then want more flashbacks for, like, let's say Clementine, or for like just a little hint of what Lee's Everett's was in like season 1 or 2? You just want a flashback for those characters? Or let's say in the next season we get, let's say, just throwing a curveball here, we get a new character. Would you want more flashbacks, or just not really?
Well, I guess it depends on who the main character is, like what are the circumstances. Like I would have loved like Lee and Clementine flashbacks, but I think it's like we're so far ahead. Like Lee has been dead for years in game, and Clementine, you know, has gotten to a point. It's like I think flashbacks of those characters are kind of they're not needed at this point, unfortunately.
A Clem flashback would just be null and void if it's before the apocalypse, because she was an 8-year-old girl.
No, she was 9, I thought.
No, she was 8 at the start, but then she turned 9 over the course of the season.
Yeah.
They could have still had flashbacks from back in season 2 even. I still feel like it would have been awesome if they had a Luke flashback. Even though Luke died, it would have been really awesome to have.
Oh my god. You're going to still hold on to that?
Did anyone else find it a little bit...
There are a lot of Luke fans that felt that they were cheated a little bit in the last episode, because he was supposed to survive, from what I was told. He was supposed to survive Kenny and Luke instead of Jane and Kenny. So, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say, Mark? I'm sorry, Jacob.
I was gonna say, was anybody else disappointed when because there were a couple of characters in this season that you could have kept alive, but then after you keep them alive, they just disappeared. Like Max, Lonnie, Joan, and Clint. They just all disappear if you keep them alive. Like, there was no mention of Joan or Clint in this episode at all.
Yeah, in the ending, they just say Joan disappeared, or Matt, and I think with Trip and Ava, how like they can just how, especially with Ava, how she just dies just so quickly. I feel like that is unfortunately a huge problem with they have such aspirations, the scale, the scope of you can change, make the story any way you want, but at the end of the day, someone's got to look at that big tree diagram of all the different choices and be like, how do I write one episode that can just apply to everybody without it conflicting? And so yeah, I feel like there are times where we get cheated out of that because they have to try and mend it quickly, like what with when we started this whole season talking about how Kenny dies in the very beginning of season 3 if you kept him alive all the way through season 1 and 2, and then just
And not just how do I write it, as speaking as a software engineer, how do I program that?
right
It's a
to account for
something
everything.
like I do not envy the developers of this game or any game where choice matters to this degree, because that is a mammoth of variables that you have to take in consideration to program. I do not envy them at all.
I guess
Right,
that's
it exponentially gets more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But then as a player, when you never got a confirmed death, it just makes, because like in episode 3, if you choose to keep Max alive after he outs Joan's secrets to the rest of the community leaders, he never shows up again ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not in episode 4 or 5 if you keep him alive. So it's like, what happened to him? Or is he just gone like Clint and Joan are now?
Mm-hmm. That's a very valid point. Anyone?
I thought Javi was fine. I didn't get to, it was just said, satisfied with the choices that how my Javi ended up. And I would say I didn't feel satisfied that I was able to play him the way I wanted to, or that because of the starkness of the choices that I wanted more nuance. And again, we've already gone into that. As a structure for a character, I don't think I cheated at baseball is really comparable at all to I killed someone, as far as a dark secret that they have to overcome, or I wasn't around my family very often. Okay, well, it's not great, but it's I didn't feel like I had the choices enough to. I wasn't there when it mattered. Now I am. I get that that's probably his arc, but I didn't feel like it was fulfilled enough. And I guess maybe it's just a weird shift in my mentality of late, tabletop gaming related, is that I just felt I knew that Javier was going to be there from start to finish. And actually, weirdly, in kind of a mental change, that made me not as invested, I suppose. I'm switching around. It's very weird to me. I'm going through some changes, uncomfortable changes that I'm
just like Clementine.
Yeah, just like Clementine's experiencing. That I'm becoming more attracted to a gaming style where I don't know when my character could die. Like that is a guaranteed possibility. Where for such a long time I was running campaigns and where my players would probably their characters would never die. I mean, I wanted the narrative so much. I wanted the story so much. And I think that took away from the satisfaction of achieving the goal of getting to the end, if you're going to get to the end anyway. So that's just been something that's of note. And again, a me personal thing that I would have been kind of okay with a touchy subject, but a Luke kind of situation where your protagonist ish, like, well, I guess you don't control him, but he feels them dying. Maybe I'm just full of contradictions because I just said I didn't like that happening in Game of Thrones, but I don't know. I thought he was all right. I'll back away now.
Okay.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I actually, during my live stream, stumbled upon a quote-unquote secret ending where Javier dies.
Huh.
Because if you fail the last time, there's a what do you call it when we're supposed to tap things? What's it? It's quick time event. So you when you go and try to save David and Gabe, you have to fight off a bunch of zombies. If you fail the last quick time event, the zombie actually manages to bite Javier, and Normally in that situation, it just cuts to a game over.
Game over. You dead.
But there was an extended, full of feels, extended dialogue that ends up happening between Javier and Gabe. Because Gabe comes out and he's like, Javier, and they have this little bit of an exchange while Javier is dying before him. And it goes on for a good, 45 seconds, I would say.
Okay.
And I thought that was really awesome. I thought that was actually going to be canon, that actually was another ending that you could end up with. But then you end up getting the game over screen, and then you can start again.
That's weird.
I actually loved it. I feel like Telltale should do that more.
I feel like
they should.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, you can say that.
No, it was one of those things that they added in that I don't think I've ever seen in any other Telltale game. So again, credit where credit is due. I'm like, they should do that. They should do more of that, because that was awesome.
Actually,
that extended death scene was awesome.
There is a really cool game over scene in the first season in episode 3, where if you fail to get Kenny to stop the train, he locks you out, and you go back and you find Zombie Duck ate everybody, and then he pushes you off the train.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes, that's true.
I also want to bring up, I won't go into specifics because it's off topic, but there is actually a non-canon ending in Game of Thrones as well.
Well, I don't know if we want to give anything away from Game of Thrones, but okay, we'll at least acknowledge that one exists, and you and I can. You can tell me after that.
I agree that I like the idea that it's extended responsibilities, and you could literally be, pardon the pun with regards to the title of the whole series, but you could be in a dead man walking situation where even though the game is continuing, you've already you're committed to this unfortunate end state. I don't know, it could just be me, but even in the case of the feels moment between Javier and Gabe, something just suddenly to me, I would feel definite emotion in the moment, but then something's just so shallow and just ripping me out of that moment as I love you, Javi, I love you, Gabe, and nice touching thing, then press X to continue and restart. Something about that just seems so just sudden, I don't know, to me that just seems kind of knee-jerk to do that, to just lead you along, and then that didn't happen, let's see what really happened. Something feels so disingenuous, I guess.
I even said during the live stream when I got that secret ending, and I believe that I'm in the vast minority when I say this, I kind of half wished that that's how the game ended for me, even though there was 30 more minutes of content left that I could experience, 30 whole minutes of content. I would have been okay with that ending for Javier, because he did what he set out to do. He set out to save Gabe, and he succeeded in saving Gabe. And it would have been a bittersweet ending. It would have been a bittersweet Lee ending, but again, I don't think most players would say that. I think most players would be like, no, I want to be able to continue and finish the game and do what really happened. I see that Carson is nodding. So, do you agree or disagree? I'm not sure what that shake means.
No,
Carson, go ahead. Yeah,
you first.
Andrew, you shook your head. I don't know what that meant.
I would agree entirely with you that.
Okay.
And I want to kind of share an experience. I'll try and be brief. I'm never brief, but I'm trying.
Go ahead. No,
my first D&D character ever died about. There was still a lot of story and adventure left that could be done, and the rest of the party kind of did it. He died. He was a paladin. Holding the gates against the horde of undead so that everyone else could escape and the villagers could escape. And I didn't know what happened with the story. I don't know what could have been, but I will remember that ending and that character forever. And the satisfaction of that is absolutely way better than growing old or whatever. Is he lived and died the way that he believed in and with conviction. And I'm okay that the story ended there because it ended so well, as opposed to just live as long as possible. Going back to what their dad was saying, the quality of living, your legacy. That character's legacy is forever in my. I can picture that was 20 years ago, and I can picture that moment vividly, and that to me can sometimes be more memorable and more satisfying than just. I saw all the content. I think I could have been just very pleased feels like I kind of chose wrong in a more satisfying path, but that I would have been cut off anyway, that kind of thing. It's a little disappointing, but yes, I agree fully with you. That would have been an awesome ending. I would have been totally fine with that.
Well, mine is a little different. It's just that even though it would have been like story-wise really great to have that in there, I just feel like it would just been like I think the word would be dissatisfying for the gamer itself, because the gamer wants to always try and finish a game. Like once they know, like, all right, I'm 100% done, I feel pleased and satisfied. If you gave them like they failed and they got to live with that ending, they're gonna be like, oh, now I got to do this all over again and just get to that specific part where I don't mess up. It would just be that'd be completely dissatisfying for the gamer.
I completely understand what you're saying, Carson.
Yeah.
Definitely understand that. I think I feel like you're in the majority.
Yes.
Vast majority.
We are the majority.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
There are two little pieces of irony that come from this episode. Like, this is by far the most story branching episode of this season, yet it's the only episode that had one writer.
Oh.
All the other episodes
I didn't know it had one writer.
7, which I found to be strange.
And
it's also ironic with all of our statements earlier about how this season being the weakest cast of characters, yet it's strange when you realize that this is the season that had the largest number of characters that lived through all 5 episodes. In season 1, it was just Lee, Clementine, and Kenny. In season 2, it was just Clementine and Luke. And in this season, it's Javier, Clementine, Gabe, Kate, David, Eleanor, and depending on how you play, Trip and Conrad. So it's
Also,
still
you forgot
strange.
Pete and Krista in season 1.
No, they weren't in the first 2 episodes.
No. I thought you were talking about like the season 1 in general.
No, I'm talking about appearing in all 5 episodes.
Oh,
all
okay.
5 episodes.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. My thoughts on the finale. I felt that the finale as a finale was strong as well, just like Mark thought. I liked how not only decisions from the past episodes but from previous seasons affected what happened in the finale. I thought that was really cool. I liked how the branching endings was neat, and the fact that the endings branched but they weren't completely different from each other, that as they were in season 2, which I think was smart of Telltale, because then I think they could have an easier time working on this for whatever comes next, because really the endings are who lives and who dies. I liked a lot of the feels moments. The writing in the feels, the writing with Gabe's death, I thought was very well done. That was what really sparked a lot in my head. And one of the biggest things that I remembered, even though I didn't actually experience it in my Let's Play, I saw it after the fact. There were a lot of things that I've already talked about my gripes with this season, especially with people who didn't seem to remember this, even though the game said they would remember this. They seemed to conveniently forget a lot of things that I did for them or didn't do to them. And even my saves didn't remember this either. This was definitely the most buggiest. I don't know if this is a personal problem. It probably is, but this was the buggiest game for me of all the seasons. So if that's something I noticed from a technical standpoint. How it ranks with the other 3, I still personally feel that season 1 was the best for me. I felt that season 1 was the best paced out of the 3, and I think that was the largest difference that season 1 had versus 2 and 3. And because of that, I think I ended up getting more attached to the characters. I feel like, though, that this was a step up in many ways to season 2. I think that they took a lot of lessons learned from season 2 and applied it to season 3. So I think that season 2 had the better beginning, but season 3 had the better ending. The second half of season 3 was about as good as the first half of season 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And then as a protagonist, I really liked Javier. I liked him a lot. I felt that you could have swapped him with another character, and I would have just liked the character just as much. So I don't think there was anything about Javier's character that really stuck out for me. As David said, I mean, he was this guy who, you know, may or may not have done something shady with his baseball career, and, you know, didn't visit his family very often. So, yeah, there wasn't really that much to him. But what I do like, and I think Telltale does a very good about this across the board, is I do like that he was yet another protagonist who was a person of color, just like Lee was. The nice thing is I don't think virtually any gamer notices that aspect, notices that the protagonist happens to be a person of color. But it's nice with I liked the little nuances with Javier and his family, because, you know, with Spanish or Cuban culture, it was kind of neat to see that dynamic. So yeah, I think that I am interested in seeing what the next Telltale DLC or Season 4 or whatever is coming up next. I'm interested in seeing where Clementine goes from here. It would be great if Javier was involved in some form. I definitely see that they would probably try to have us control Clementine in Season 4 if there is a whole season with her, just because it kind of makes sense. I think she's more of a capable person now, and it probably makes more sense for people to ask Clementine to do everything. And but it would also be really cool if they took a Tales from the Borderlands approach, where there are actually two protagonists that you get to control. Maybe there's specific scenes where you get to choose whether or not you want to control Clementine for the scene, or you want to control Javier for the scene, and different things happen depending on which character you control. Again, that's more of a pipe dream for me, but I thought that that's another way that they could give the game mechanic and storytelling, take it to the next level, if the developers are willing to do that. So those are my thoughts.
I had a question, Hawk, for you. Would you want Clementine to keep aging, or do you want her to just stay like that age right now, right here?
Even if I wanted her to keep aging, I think it would be difficult, just because the established universe in the comics doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
So if she does age a lot more, then Robert Kirkman either decides this is going to be canon and I'm just going to apply all this stuff to the comics, or it's just going to be its own separate universe thing.
In terms of how long the apocalypse sticks around for, or?
Correct.
Okay.
But to fully answer your question, it doesn't. I think Clementine's at the age where she's she's an adult as far as I'm concerned in a zombie apocalypse. Just like Ellie is an adult in The Last of Us. So I don't think she needs to age at this point. Even if she does age a couple more years, I think the vast difference between her age in Season 2 versus 3 is a lot wider than the same age gap would be, if she aged that many years in a Season 4, for example.
Gabe is actually older than Clementine, to the fact that he's ready and he's not goes to show age really doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, Gabe is, I think, older than Clementine by a year. I think he's 14.
I think so. But, yep.
Okay. Anything else before we close? I think everyone got a chance to say what they wanted to
still have a theory. I have a theory for Season 4. And I'm
Okay.
throwing a curveball here, and I'm still praying and wishing for it, but I'm going to add it into it. But I'm hoping we get to see Krista or Lily from Season 1 and 2.
To quote Lee
I agree
about what he said about Kenny's boat, that's a pipe dream.
That's cold. That's cold.
I think that if they were smart, they would tie up at least the Krista loose end, because that's a major loose end that would have a big impact if they did reintroduce her in Season 4.
Yeah, because me and Hark, we went to Wellington. We don't know what happened to her.
I think that one of the reasons why I felt that Season 2's beginning was so strong was because for me it was a big surprise. The surprise and wow factor. Oh my gosh, Kenny's alive. Was a very good, cool moment.
I don't want to relive that moment. I remember what happened.
And I didn't have any of those moments in Season 3. I think we would have had that moment in Season 3 if Krista somehow appeared, I think.
They tried to do that with the twist of David in Episode 2.
They did, and it just wasn't. I don't think it would have had nearly as much impact as if they brought Krista back.
They need more time to simmer. Maybe if they brought, yeah.
Krista's just one of those like big giant question marks that it was just hanging. So you kind of feel like,
yeah, maybe. Who knows?
But my opinion.
A little bit of trivia. I just looked on the wiki, so I just learned this like 10 seconds ago. But about a few minutes ago, I was saying how it's weird that some characters we just don't know anything about. But apparently, Max and Rufus share the same voice actor. So it's a little odd to me that we got to say goodbye to Rufus in the finale, but not Max. Considering Max was more of an important character than Rufus, because we had the choice to shoot him or let him go. Then after that, he cameoed in the episode 4 for like 2 seconds, and then that was it. Then you see his death, and then so
nice they brought back Max instead. Yeah,
because I think Molly shared the same voice actor as Bonnie, so it's not the first time Telltale reused voice actors.
Yeah, they got a little. Yeah, and then I was just gonna agree with Hark that this definitely was a buggy game for me where Hark knows like there was in episode 1 and 2 occasionally there were scenes that just didn't load. Yeah. And
I mostly kept it to myself, but I had some bug issues back when the first 2 episodes came out as well. Like the game would crash about an hour into the first episode, and every time I would try to reload the game, I would just hit continue episode 1, and it would just jump back to my desktop. Wow. And it just would not work. And the only way I would be able to get it working again was to restart the whole episode, because for some reason, Telltale took out the ability to just rewind to certain chapters or checkpoints in this season. If you want to replay the episode, you have to replay the entire thing.
And I know it was on. I made no changes to my computer at all, but it can even be seen in my recordings. Episode 1 and 2 performed very poorly on my computer at first. Like I was like around 30, maybe 35, sometimes even 25 frames per second or whatever. Like it was stuttering, but then suddenly after a few patches and then I start episode 3, suddenly I'm playing very smoothly and in the higher 50s and 60s suddenly. But it was just, I feel like maybe it was either rushed or they didn't optimize it enough. They wanted to get it out there as soon as they wanted to get it out while they wanted to strike while the anvil was hot or whatever it is. I don't know.
Speaking of not patching glitches, did anyone else, for all the players that had Trip die in episode 4, see Trip walking in the background anyway?
Yeah, I did not, but that sounds
that happened. Both Hark and I had an instance in episode 2 where even after Clementine took off with Conrad, you just saw her ghost suddenly in the background randomly in a scene.
I saw that.
Or with me, I bound Jesus's hands, but his model was walking as though there was no zip ties on it. So
I didn't bind his hands, and yet he was walking as if they were binding.
Yeah, that happened with Hark. They really need to focus on one game at a time and not just leave it up to the interns to do everything. But I can say that I'm an intern. I can say that about people.
Yes. Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you for all of you guys for committing to not only talking but also playing through all of the games so we can talk about them. So Mark and Jacob and Andrew, thank you for joining me throughout all 5 of these talks. Carson and Lucky Jack, thank you for joining us for 2 of them. And to Alexandra, if you're watching, Alexandra, thank you very much for joining us for episode 3.
It's a shame David didn't get to come on, because I really want to know what the correct answer is for this season.
Yes, I did want to know what the correct answer is. David apologized he couldn't participate, but David's been busy with other games.
It's fine.
Understandable. So thank you again, everybody, for watching too. Hopefully you found something of value or learned something about these episodes. I appreciate you guys listening to all of our opinions about this game. Not sure if I'm going to continue this in season 4. We'll see if there seems to be enough interest. And if you do, we'll see who does or doesn't participate in the panel if we do. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Love yourselves and love each other. Happy gaming and all that jazz.
Farewell.